We welcome you all for the third session of FDP sponsored by Atal. This session is about adversarial search and constraint satisfaction problem, which is handled by Dr. R. Devi Priya, Associate Professor in the Department of Information Technology, Konga Engineering College, Perundurai. I am very much delighted to introduce our speaker. Dr. R. Devi Priya has completed BE and ME Computer Science and Engineering in Konga Engineering College and PhD in the area of data mining in Anna University. Her area of interest includes data warehousing, data mining, and optimization techniques. She has published 34 papers in international journals and presented 18 papers in national and international conferences. She was invited to deliver speech on various topics such as machine learning approaches, soft computing, deep learning, and optimization techniques. She worked on various consultancy projects related to her area. She gained 11 years of experience in teaching and 2 years in industry. Now I invite our speaker to take over the session. Thank you. Ma'am, Devi Priya ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, you all have a good idea of what is AI, right? And I think almost all are faculty, and hence you have a good experience with AI and working with AI projects also. Just can anybody tell me what is just the basic definition of AI so that we can go to the next thing? Just a small recap. Or am I questioning you at the beginning itself? Just anybody who can define what is an AI? Because this is the basic thing that we should know. We all would have worked in many AI projects or many AI algorithms. You would have come across all the algorithms, and some of you might have taught your AI algorithm subjects also. But what is the basic meaning of AI? Can anybody define what is an AI?
Making a machine intelligible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Making a machine artificially intelligible.
Okay, so you are trying to make a machine behave intelligently, right? Like the humans.
Human being,
And yes, ma'am. Yes, exactly. And one thing I want to ask before starting any AI session, this is the basic question that I ask to all the participants. Can you define what do you mean by intelligence? Okay, let us start with the basic thing. First, we have the common word data, right? Then we have information, the related word. Or we almost use these two words interchangeably without knowing the right meaning. Next, after data and information, we have knowledge. And then comes intelligence, right? So these four words are very closely related. And we often confuse with these four words. Can anybody tell where to use these four words or write difference between these four words? We'll use many data, but if we are asked to define data, yes ma'am. Lata ma'am, somebody is trying to answer, please.
Yeah, data means it's a raw data, ma'am.
Raw data.
Yeah.
Okay, any example of data, ma'am?
The data collected from a data source, it's a data with erroneous data.
No, ma'am. I'm asking, can you give an example of data not related with any domain?
Okay. Example of data means we need some data after the data, the raw data processor. Then we can make it as information.
Okay, raw data we collect from our data sources, we process it to get information, right? Somebody have also texted Somik Dasar and Uma. Okay, so they are all right. Okay, data, for example, if I'm giving you just 5, what is 5? 5 has no meaning, right? That's just a raw data. You can relate 5 with any context, right? And now I'm saying I have 5 tomatoes. Right? Now this data 5 becomes an information, right? This data 5 is now associated with some meaning. Meaningful data is called as an information, right? Okay, so this is very basic. Next, what is knowledge and intelligence? Some of them has texted. Okay, knowledge, when we draw conclusions, information to our use according to our need. Okay, from that information we draw knowledge. Then what's the difference between knowledge and information and then intelligence? Because they are all very close. Yes, anybody?
After if we get knowledge, we going to take relevant data only.
If we get knowledge, okay, by using our knowledge, we extract right data, right? So for example, I have 5 tomatoes. 5 is a data. I have 5 tomatoes is a information, right? Then give me, for this example itself, can you give me how the knowledge can be used? Knowledge is collection of information over many years, okay, and information collected, ability to make decision. Okay, so let me not waste the time, and if you know, you can try, and I will give the same example, right? So knowledge is, if you see the tomato in front of you, you are able to identify that it is a tomato, and you know tomato is a fruit. Okay, if you are able to identify tomato as a fruit, then that is the knowledge. Okay, but how did you gain this knowledge? You have gained this knowledge over years, right? I have 5 tomatoes, or I have tomato is red in color, tomato is round in shape. They are all information, right? And tomato is a fruit, is a knowledge that is not only one time given. This is the knowledge that you have gained over many years, right? And what is intelligence then? Intelligence is the next level. Okay, now you know, from your knowledge, you know that tomato is a fruit. Intelligence is the next level of knowledge where, okay, what if you are trying to prepare fruit salad? What are the components or ingredients for fruit salad? Normally, you will use most of the fruits, right? But will you use tomato for fruit salad? No, right? Even though tomato is a fruit, we don't use tomato for the fruit salad. This is called as intelligence. Okay, not adding tomato into the fruit salad is called as a intelligence. Now you all got the meaning of or difference between what is data, what is information, then how it is converted into knowledge, and then intelligence, right? 5 is data. I have 5 tomatoes is an information. Tomato is a fruit, is a knowledge. Okay, and we should not add this tomato fruit into fruit salad. This is the intelligence, right? This is how, whatever may be the data that is available with us, we have to use that information and try to convert that into knowledge and make decisions intelligently, right? We humans make decisions based on our human intelligence or human knowledge, right? But how we are training the system, how we are artificially training the system to intelligent behavior, to behave intelligently, right? This is called as artificial intelligence. Yes, and as we have already know all these things, we'll just directly go with this content, adversarial search. Okay, and does anybody know what is the meaning of the word adversarial? Since it's an afternoon session, I don't want to just talk throughout the session. I want you all to be interactive so that we make it more interesting and we get some points out of the session. Yes? So what is, okay, rationally, adversarial search is the first topic that we are going to see, right? What is adversarial? Can anybody tell what's the meaning of this? Adversarial opposition. Okay, so adversarial means adverse effect. When we are doing something and if there are any negative effects or negative impacts, they are called as adversarial effects, right? So for example, now there is a COVID pandemic situation, right? So what are the adverse effects of this COVID? That means what are the problems that have arisen out of this COVID-19, right? So these kind of searches or these kind of effects when we are trying to identify before that happens. Okay, risk prevention. So we know that these are the adverse effects. That means risks. Before the risk is going to happen, we are trying to identify what are the risks associated with a particular situation and try to avoid those risks. Right? That is the meaning of the term adversarial. And now we have adversarial search. In AI, when we try to apply AI for any problem, normally we are trying to search for something, right? We have many possible solutions and we are trying to find solution for a given problem. We are trying to search the optimal solution or best solution for a given problem, right? That is what the scenario in almost all the problem solving thing, right? So here what we are trying to search, we are trying to search a good solution, right? If I am going to play a game, this adversarial search will commonly come under game playing. Okay, so not only with game playing, it can be used for all types of problems, but we normally use it for game playing. Okay, so when we are trying to play chess, right? So two people will be playing the chess, and how the system are identified. For example, now Vishwanathan Anand is playing chess with the computer. Anand, he is making some move, and for his move, the computer next should make the move, right? So what is the next move? So how the computer decides how that, actually that's a machine, right? How the machine artificially have or get intelligence to move, to have the next move, right? So these kind of things are called as adversarial risk prevention. So when we know if I make this particular move, what is the next move that the opponent may make? Likewise, we have to predict priorly what are the consequences of our entire thing, right? So this is how a game play can be done. And if we are going to use this in a computer also, we have to be very careful because there may be many possible moves, right? Suppose player A and player B or both are playing, both players will have different moves and nobody knows what is the next move of the opponent. Right, it's not only with two people, we can have multiplayer games also, right? So even with that moves, nobody knows, even the player A doesn't know what is the next move that he can make, because that his next move is decided by the move of the opponent, right? So, and anyhow he has to be prepared. If the opponent is going to make this next move, what should I do? So likewise, all those things should be prepared, and that is what is called as adversarial search, right? So examine the problems that arise when we try to plan ahead in a world where other agents are planning against us. So we have to identify the risks and try to plan before itself, so that if any risks or if the opponent makes this move, what should be my next move, alternate move, right? And here we have multi-agents. Not only two agents are associated, we have many agents. Any given agent needs to consider the actions of other agents and how they affect its own welfare. If I am making a move now, this move is going to affect my next move and also the opponent's move, right? So all those things should be considered, and introduce possible contingencies into the agent's problem solving process. New things, new strategies and new techniques or new moves will be introduced. And here again we have two types of environment: cooperative environment and competitive environment. Competitive environment means only two players, for example, or 3 players or 4 players also can be done, but if one player makes a move, his probability of winning negatively affects the probability of losing for others, right? If you and me are playing, it is a competitive one. Either I should win or you should win, right? If I'm making the good moves, obviously you are losing your moves. Or if you are playing tennis, right? If you are playing tennis singles, obviously it is a competitive environment. And next, cooperative environment means here we have 2 or more people involved in one side and also many people involved on the other side, where people playing in one side should be cooperating with each other and should be competitive to the other side, right? So within the team, cooperation should be there, and with the other team, with the opponent team, competition should be there. And both these kinds of things should be properly incorporated into your problem solving, right? Next, adversarial search problems are here. Agents have conflicting goals. Conflicting goals means, so I'll play with the intention of I should win. You will play with the intention of you should win. Actually, the goal is one. Any one person can win. So both are conflicting. So whoever is fittest, whoever plays well can win the game, right? So this is the thing here. And we are going to discuss how this can be implemented in a program. And most important thing in game, unpredictable opponent, right? So we cannot predict how opponent will behave. There are many games here. Actually, so as given here, we will play this tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe is a very common game. Carom, right? Sudoku. So all these are games which are now played by computer itself, right? So this chessboard is a very common example. And in AI context, you will see this as n points problem or 4 points problem, right? So all those things. And time limits. And one more thing, we have a time limit. Suppose if we fix a time, this game should be ended within half an hour. And whoever is in the final stage or better stage at this particular time limit can win. And unlikely to find goal. In the beginning, we may not know what is the goal state, right? That is to be reached based on the movings made by the people, and must approximate. Approximately, okay, so the final result should be here. So this is the expected position, and that should be decided on the course of your game, right? And here in AI, games have special format, deterministic. Deterministic information, that means previously we have some information that is determined and the goal is determined, but the moves are stochastic. Moves we do not know, right? But how many, for example, if we are playing a chess, how many coins should be there? Okay, so 2 players, there's how many boards, how many boxes will be there, how many coins will be there for black and white, how many horses, how many queens, all these are determined, right? And next, turn taking. So turn taking means if I'm playing now, next the opponent person should play, right? So likewise, every person will have their turns. And 2 player. Normally here we have 2 players when we are trying to play with computers. And zero-sum games of perfect information. What do you mean by zero-sum means? It describes a situation in which a participant's gain or loss is exactly balanced by the losses or gains of other participants. Okay, so if I am trying to make a good move, obviously my opponent loses a point. If we are playing tennis, for example, tennis or shuttlecock, if I'm winning, obviously the other one loses 6 points, right? This is called as zero sum, right? And or this is one situation where if I win, obviously it affects the next person. Or in another case, the total payoff to all players is the same for every instance of the game. Okay, so it's a constant sum. Constantly all the points will be added up, right? So this is basic things in games. And now we will formally define how a game can be designed in AI context in a computer, right? So S0 is the initial state, and that is represented by S0. So that is the initial state where the game starts. Next, player. Okay, so determines which player has the move in a state, player 1 or player 2. Next, actions. Actions means, so the legal move, the set of moves that he is making. And next, result. If I'm moving the queen here, queen to the next position, what is the result? What is the next state transition? Next, terminal test. Terminal test is nothing but the final ending criteria. Okay, so if this test is passed, okay, the game is over. Okay, so that means if there is no possible further move, then obviously the person one wins. Likewise, it is true. This terminal test function will return true when the game is over and false otherwise. And one more thing, we'll have important thing called as utility function. In any game, we'll have this utility function which assigns scores for your moves. Okay, it's a numerical value for a game that ends in a terminal state, yes. So you go on assigning numerical value for each move. Okay, you have some function f of x equal to something, you calculate the value for that function, and at the end you have the result for both players. And whichever player has the best score will get the winning state, right? So in chess, outcome, what is outcome normally? It may be either a win, person A win, or he lose, or sometimes it's a draw. Okay, and the score can be +1. If he wins, he gets the score of +1, and if he lose, he gets the score of 0. And if it's a draw, each person will get 1/2. That's 0.5. Right? Likewise, any game will have the utility value, and it can be designed like this. A game with 2 players. So this is the very common example seen in adversarial search in any AI context. This is minimax algorithm, right? So where max and min both are playing, that means both are having their chances, and this problem is defined here with the initial state as given in the previous slide. The initial state is the board position, and which player has to move first. Successor function is nothing but a list of legal moves. Successor is normally the next move. If I am making some move, obviously what is the next possible move for you, opponent? That is successor function. Okay, that is a successor move. Next, goal test, whether the game is over. And utility function, so which assigns the value for your moves, right? And for this, we normally have the game tree. Okay, game tree is nothing but we start with the initial state, and from the initial state, we make some legal moves, and at every state, we show in the tree. And that means that each node or each level, we show what is the next position. If this move is made, what is the next position? What is the next position? Likewise, this game tree is showing you or depicting you how the moves are carried out till the final goal state, right? Okay, we will start with the minimax decision. I hope you all are having the basic idea about minimax algorithm. Yes or no? Because many faculty are there, and I hope most of you would have handled this AI subject. Okay, so we'll go with this minimax algorithm. And here, what are the basic things here? First, we assign a utility value for each possible ending. I am making a move or you are making a move. At the end, you have to assign a particular utility value and assures best possible ending, right? So whenever you are trying to play, what is your expectation? Okay, so I will play better and I will win, right? And assuming opponent also plays perfectly. When you start the game, you obviously expect the other person in front of you will also play better. Assuming he also perfectly plays, he knows all the rules and he makes the right move after you make your move, right? And opponents try to give you worst possible ending. So what does the opponent think? Normally, whoever may be playing the game will try to push the opponent to the worst ending, right? That means if we make a check, if we are playing a chess, what we'll do? We'll try to make a checkpoint for the opponent, right? That's the thing. And here we normally use depth first search tree traversal. Okay, depth first. Normally the tree is like this. Yes, we all know the tree structure is like this, and will not go by BFS, breadth first search. We'll go by DFS, where we'll continue our searching till the leaf node, right? And throughout this leaf node, we calculate the utility by using the utility function. And if you are not able to find solution at some point, obviously we'll backtrack, right? We'll go to the previous alternate move and make alternate movement. And it's a perfect play for deterministic game, and assume both players play optimally. And the idea here is choose move to position with highest minimax value. And here we have minimax because here in this problem, we'll have both players as mini and max. In the sense, two players, one player is trying to maximize one value and another player is trying to minimize the value. And both will have alternate turns. and best achievable payoff against best play will be the expected one. And this is the problem definition here. Minimax of yes. Yes is the starting position, and we'll have the utility. This utility function will be assigned if the terminal test is passed. That means if the ending state is reached, and at every state if the player of S equal to max. That means consider this is player A and another one is player B. Here they are represented as max and min, because here when we try to maximize one thing, obviously the other thing is minimized, right? Inversely proportional. So if the player A plays, he tries to find the maximum, okay, maximum value on his move. And if it is a minimum player, this B player, obviously he'll try to find the minimum value. That is the best solution for him. Okay, so we'll don't confuse here. We'll clearly explain how this can be solved with the problem, right? Okay, so this is a typical example. Just I will explain. Okay, so here this is called as a game tree. As we have already discussed, so both players are their max and min, and they all will take the alternate positions, alternate turns, right? And this is our terminal. This is our leaf node in the game tree. So this is our final state. Whoever wins here will be the winner, right? Now this is the terminal state, and imagine this is the initial board state. Now we have the inputs like this, right? So at every node, it has two children. And finally, we have max, min, max. So this is the terminal node. Okay, so these are the inputs, are leaf values. And now, if it is the max, okay, so if you are trying to, this entering of value should be proceeded from bottom to top. Okay, so now we are trying to find values for this max. Okay, so max means of among all the children of this particular node, we have to find the maximum value. We have two children here, -1 and 3, which is the maximum 3, right? So we have to fill 3 here. Next child. So what is the next pair here? 5 and 1. So which is the maximum here? 5. So you will fill 5 here, right? So next, here what is the value to be filled? Since it is a depth first search, first it will directly come to the leaf node. Okay, -1 will be first traced, right? And next it will go to the parent, and it has to be determined. The value of this node should be determined. To determine that, it goes to its another child, sibling. Okay, and it will compare, and now we have the value 3. And next it will go here, but we do not know for now what will be the value to be filled. So it can be decided only by looking through this right child, right? So this right child again has sub-children, and here 5 and 1, the maximum is 5. Next. Okay, so I'll just trace with this. So 3 and 5, right? Next, based on these two values, this value should be filled. So this is minimum level. So among 3 and 5, which one is minimum? It will be filled, right? See, so here 3 will be filled. Okay, similarly for the right node, after filling this 3, it will check for this value, but we do not have any sufficient value to decide. So we go to the right child, right branch, and now we start from the bottom, right? -6 and -4. Among these two values, which one is max? So because in this particular level, we are having the max. So -4 is the maximum value, and here we do not have value. So leave blank and come here. Okay, so among these two nodes, 9 is maximum. So 9 is filled here. And next, among this -4 and 9, which one is minimum? So -4 is minimum, right? So -4 is being filled here. Okay, so is it clear? So if the particular level is max, maximum among the child nodes will be the value chosen. And if the level is for min, minimum of these two children will be the value. Yes, is it clear? Is anybody? Or am I going fast or slow? Anybody can let me know. Or is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you. And if you have any query or if you have anything to be modified, you can interrupt me at any time. Okay? Okay. Okay. Similarly, for this particular node, we have max. So 3 and minus 4. Which one is the greatest value here? 3. So you will this will be the partition and this should be his move. Only then he can win. Right? Okay. So this is a simple example of minimax algorithm, and the algorithm is given here. So actually, before explaining the algorithm, I gave you a demonstration so that you can easily understand the demonstration. So now we have the function minimax, and the position of this is given. Depth indicates the number of levels, right? So here we have 1, 2, 3, 3, right? So that represents the depth, and maximizing player. So we are trying to maximize, and if depth equal to 0, that means if we reach, so here we start, and when we are starting here, depth will be 3, and when we go up, depth will obviously reach 0 when we reach here. So when the depth equal to 0, or the game is over, and return the static evaluation. So that means the value calculated, the value 3 will be returned here. And if max player is playing, obviously initially, actually for everything, it will be by default set as infinity. Okay, while starting the game in max node, all the values will be set as minus infinity, and it will be updated once it is calculated. Once these two nodes are evaluated, this will be updated, this minus infinity will be updated to 3. Okay, in max node. Similarly, in min node, so it will be initialized to all min nodes will be by default initialized to plus infinity, and it will be updated once the values are calculated from its children, right? So that is what given in this thing. If max player is playing, obviously all the max players will have minus infinity as their initial value, and for each child of that particular position, this minimax is evaluated. Okay, actually this is an iterative or recursive function. Okay, so which recursively calls its children, its parent, all those things, and depth. Okay, and max evaluation equal to max of max evaluation. This is another function. So max eval and eval. So among the previously seen value, and that means among both these values. Okay, for every node among the children, which one is max or which one is min. Okay, so for max, maximum will be chosen and that will be returned. And if it is a min, if it is a node in min level, minimum value is chosen. Okay, so that is min value is chosen and that will be returned. Okay, and the initial call will be like this. So here we have depth equal to 3, and the game starts with maximize player. Okay, so the game starts with maximize player. So here it is said like that. Okay, so there are different versions of this minimax algorithm in AI books and that, but this is the basic idea. Okay, and when we are having this minimax algorithm, and this is the basic for any game. Okay, and if it is complete, that means can we get the solution, can we complete the problem at finally? Yes, if the tree is finite, that means if your depth of tree is finite, obviously you can get solution. That means the problem can be solved completely and you can get the final solution. And is it optimal? What do you mean by optimal? Again, even though this is a basic term, can anybody share what is mean by optimal? Because this is again a very common term that we use. Anybody? Before that, somebody has texted, would the root be always max? No, sir. Need not always be max. It can be alternate. So here, since we have set our problem with depth equal to 3, so we have done like this. Sometimes it will have min, max, man. So it can be alternative. Okay. So it since we have said that. Did you get the answer? Okay. I'll share the PPT. Okay. And optimal means the best possible, right? So for any problem, you have many possible solutions, right? Among all those possible solutions, which is the best solution? For example, I'm wishing to travel now from, now I am in Tamil Nadu. I wish to travel from Tamil Nadu to Delhi.
Madam, you are not audible.
Madam, you are not audible, madam. Participants, kindly wait for a minute. I think she will join soon.
Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, sir. I don't know what happened in network. Something has gone wrong.
Yes, ma'am. No problem.
Okay. We'll continue with that.
Okay, madam.
Okay. And one more thing, if something goes wrong, please let me know so that I'm sharing the slideshow and I cannot see what happens in the meet. Okay. Okay. Time complexity is order of B power m, where B represents the branching factor. Branching factor is nothing but, so how many children are there for a particular node. So this is called as branching factor. Here it's 3. And M stands for depth. So this is B, number of siblings, okay, in a tree. And depth stands for the number of levels till the, it means number of levels until your leaf node. Okay, so order of B power m will be your time complexity, and space complexity is order of B into m. Okay, so this is the complexity of Minimax algorithm, and what we'll be doing next is we'll try to minimize the time complexity. And okay, space complexity, it cannot be reduced to beyond some extent. Time complexity can be reduced by reducing the number of checks that we are making in a particular game. For this, we have an important thing called as alpha beta pruning. Okay, so I hope you have all come across this term, but we should clearly understand how this is being processed. Okay, so it avoid processing subtrees that have no effect on the result. So alpha beta pruning can be used for all types of problems. For some problems, for any domain problem, normally you will have some tree kind of structure. That means searching in a tree or traversing a tree. And we'll be normally using pruning, right? So in database or data mining, all we have the concept of pruning. What is meant by pruning? Again, anybody can tell me what is pruning? Yes, ma'am. Anybody? Yes, sir. Can anybody tell what is pruning? Yes, anybody? Shortening.
Pruning is a substring that matches the main string.
Yes. Yes, sir.
It's a substring matches the body of the string.
Okay, removing leaves in terms of the leaves. Okay, so it is just trimming, right? So pruning is nothing but if we have some unwanted things, what we'll do, we'll delete that, we'll cut that, right? So this is also this tree pruning, when we are growing a tree, for example, if you have a mango tree in your home, so if the branches are not needed, okay, that means if the particular branch has no fruit, what will you do? If it is not going to benefit you, you don't waste time and space in growing all those things. Obviously, you will cut that, right? So that is the basic idea here. Here also we are going to avoid, or we are going to remove the unwanted subtrees that have no effect on your final result. Okay, so for that we have two parameters in this alpha beta pruning, alpha and beta. Okay, so alpha stands for the best value for max seen so far. Okay, in minimax algorithm we have both players, right? Max and min. So this max will be represented with alpha and min will be represented with beta. Okay, so that is what is given here. Alpha means the best value for max seen so far, and beta means the best value for min. Alpha is used in min nodes and is assigned in max nodes. Okay, so don't confuse here. We'll see example, and after seeing the example, you will clearly understand. Okay, and when maximizing, when we are trying to maximize, we cut off values that are lower than alpha. Okay, so if some value is lower than the alpha value, already existing alpha value, will not process the corresponding subtree. Okay, and we'll cut off that values. And similarly, while minimizing, if some value is greater than beta, we'll cut off that. Okay, we'll see the example, and we'll try to prune. Prune is nothing but removing, right? So we'll prune the particular subtree or tree when alpha is greater than or equal to beta. Again, that depends on whether you are processing in max node or min node. Prune below a max node. Suppose if you are in a particular max node, you have to remove the right nodes, okay, right subtree, whose alpha value becomes greater than or equal to beta of its ancestors. Okay, it will check the ancestor value, and if any of the ancestor value, beta value is less than that alpha value, it will be pruned. And max nodes update alpha whenever we are processing. Okay, actually we have not represented here both alpha and beta for simplicity, but actually what happens here is alpha equal to minus infinity, okay, and beta is equal to in plus infinity. Okay, this is what is normally the traditional standard minimax algorithm. So similarly here also alpha equal to minus infinity, beta equal to plus infinity, all nodes. Similarly here, but we will not update the beta value in any of the max level. We'll update the value of alpha in max level, and here similarly we will not modify the value of alpha. We'll modify the value of beta only. Alpha value is just remaining and will not touch those things. Okay. Okay, max nodes we update alpha based on the children's return values, and in min nodes we'll update the beta. Okay, we'll see an example, you'll clearly understand. Okay, so this is an example. See here, first we have the same example I have chosen, but we'll see how the time complexity can be reduced by using alpha beta pruning, right? So we have two nodes, -1 and 3. Okay, so among these two nodes, next level is max. So what is the value here? -1 and 3, the maximum value is 3, right? Okay, so we have 3 fixed here. Okay, next, here we should fix the value, but we do not know for now what is the value. So we are moving to its right subtree. Okay, here again we don't have the value for now. We'll see the next value. Okay, so here we have 5. And unlike your minimax algorithm, we don't fill all the values initially. Okay, so there we have all the leaf nodes filled. That here also we are reducing the space complexity and also the time complexity. Okay, we'll see how. And the next value is seen here, first 5. Okay, next we are trying to find the value of this particular right child. But before finding the value of this, we have to think, is it absolutely necessary to check these two values and find max of this here? Okay, whenever we are starting some checking, we have to first identify, is it essential? Only if it is essential and giving you some benefit, we can go for that. Otherwise, if it is not needed, we can omit that, right? So you need only 5 top students. Okay, you have already known 5 top students, and will you try to find the last 49th student or 50th student? No, right? Because you already have the thing. So we need not waste time. That's the basic idea here. Okay, so without knowing the value also, we can fill its value here. Okay, so I'll just erase and so here. Okay, so see here. For example, in this case, suppose I have some minimum value. That means there are 2 possibilities. Either I have some value greater than 5 or less than 5, right? So if I have the value 2, for example, consider I have the value 2. So what will be the value here? Max of 5 and 2. So obviously I will have only 5, right? So if the right child has some value less than 5, and since it's a max node, there is no option, I have only 5. Because 5 and less than 5, 5 is greater, right? And in another case, if I have 7, okay, so what will happen? So 5 and 7 here, again I will have the value 7. So if I have some value greater than 5 here, that means it can have either 5 or 7. That is the only possibility, right? If this 5 is greater, this node will have the value 5. If 7 is greater, okay, take any value greater than 5. That value will be greater, right? So you can have any of these values. Obviously, but when you are trying to fill the value here, it is a min node. Okay, so it's 5 or greater than 5, that means 7 or 10 or even 100. You are going to choose only the minimum value 3, right? So it is not essential to check what is the value that is being stored here. Yes, got it? Irrespective of the value that is stored here, it doesn't have any impact on this value because it obviously will have the value 3. Okay. Yes, is it clear to all? Here, even if you have the value less than 5 or greater than 5, you will have greater than 5, 5 or greater. Okay, so whatever may be the value here, it's obviously greater than 3. And when you are trying to find minimum among 3 and another thing, the 3 will be the answer. So you need not waste time in searching, processing this algorithm. That means processing this tree. And this is called as alpha beta pruning step, right? Okay. See in the next example. So here you can fill the value 3. Okay, this is pruned. That is why I have dimmed. I have slightly reduced the color, right? And you go to the next right subtree. Here you have 2 values, -6 and -4. Okay, among these, which is the maximum value? -4. So -4 is filled here, no problem. But when you try to fill here, you have to first identify what is the value here. But here, again, you have to identify whether this step is actually needed. Okay, so is it needed actually? See here, where whatever may be the value here, so you will have the value here as less than or equal to 4. Okay, for example, consider you have 3 here. Okay, so we'll take another example. We have 2 here. Consider. Okay, 2 here means max, right? So here you have, imagine you have some value. Okay, 2 and 0. Which one is maximum? You will have 2, right? So among these 2 values, 2 is maximum, right? And in the next step, if you are choosing min, which one is minimum, -4 or 2? Obviously, you will have -4, right? Okay. Now imagine another case. Okay, suppose you have the value greater than 4, less than 4 here. Okay, so here you have some other values, -6. -6. Consider you have the values -6 and -10. You take any example, so which one is maximum? You are taking -6 as a maximum, right? And among this, which one is minimum? So you have -6, right? So -6 is the minimum value. That means whatever may be the values that you have in this particular subtree, you will have either 4, that means you will have either -4 or less than -4. Okay, so but when you are trying to find this value, obviously you are trying to find the maximum value. If it is going to be less than, here it is -4, if it is going to be less than -4, obviously this value will be chosen, right? So there is absolutely no need to process this entire 3 nodes. This is being pruned, right? I think it is clear now to all, right? So this is pruned. So here we have reduced the time in processing these 4 nodes in such a way that we reduced our time complexity. Okay, and finally we have this value 3 can be filled here, and this is the best move for the max player to win. This is the sequence of move to win, right? Okay, so I'll have another example. Just I'll go through fast since you have understand the basic previous thing, and we have constraint satisfaction problem to see. Okay. If anybody wants to know, convey the answer at any step, you can stop me. Okay. Okay. So here you have 8 and 5. So, yes, one sir has previously asked, shall we start always with max? No, we'll start with min also, max. Here I have depth equal to 4. Okay. So you can start with any player. So 8, 5, which one is minimum? So you have 5 minimum. So 5 is filled. Next, right tree, 6 and 2. Which one is minimum? 2 is minimum. So here you cannot predict exactly what is the thing. So we are just processing this 6 and 2. 2 is minimum. Next, you have to fill this max, right? 5 and 2, which is max? 5 is max. 5 is filled, right? Okay. Next, we have to fill this next thing. Okay. Next, for depending on your problem, the values or pruning step may occur at any stage. Okay. So while proceeding to the next step, you have to check at every stage. 3 and 8, which one is minimum? 3 is minimum. So 3 is filled. Next, 4 and 0, which is minimum? 0 is filled. Okay. Next, 0 and 3, which is maximum? 3 is maximum. And minimum of these 5 and 3. So you have 3. Okay. So you don't have any pruning until here. Next, see what happens. Okay. Next, we come here and we go to the leaf node of this particular branch. Now here we see what is the value of this. Okay. We have 1. Now we are going to check, is it essential to process the right subtree of this? Why? Because you already have 3, right? So see, whatever may be the value here. So this is going to be less than or equal to 1, right? Because you already have 1. Suppose if you have the value 5, what happens? Minimum of this 1 and 5 is again 1. So you will have 1. Another possibility, consider you have some negative value, that means less than 1 here. For example, you have -2. Okay, so 1 and -2, which is minimum, you have -2. So at any case, you have the value either less than or equal to 1. 1 or less than 1. Okay, so if it is less than 1, okay, so here in max step, again it is going to be pruned. So here there is no need. So you can take its value. You can prune this step. There is no need of proceeding to the right child. Okay, next. So this is pruning. We can prune now. Next, we are going to the right. Now we have to fill this node, right? For filling, we have to proceed to the right subtree. Okay, so here we have 5, right? And we have another child 2, right? So which is minimum? 2 is minimum. So we have 2 here. But so what is the value here to be filled? So here we have the value, some value. You can take any value which is less than or equal to 1. So this is pruned. And among this value and this value, between these two values, which one is maximum? 2 is greater, right? So obviously it will have 2. We have reduced this time. Okay. So 2. Now we have to fill this. For filling this, we have to check, is it essential to proceed to the right subtree? Okay. So whatever may be the case, we'll see. Here we start with any node. For example, I'm starting here. If you have, for example, 7, what happens? Whatever may be the input here, for example, here at this particular node, you have the value 7. Okay, so 2 and 7, this is a min node. So what will be the value filled here? You have 2, right? So among 2 and 7, 2 is minimum. So you will have the value 2. Or at another case, okay, in another case, you have some value less than 2 here. For example, 1. Among 1 and 2, which is minimum? you will have 1, right? So at any case, either you will have 2 or less than 2. That is given here. So absolutely, when you are trying to fill the value for max, you don't have any opportunity for this node, because among this 2 or less than 2 and 3, you have only 3 chosen, because this is maximum. So you have 3 chosen here. Okay, 3 will be filled here. So we can entirely skip this step or prune this step, and we will go with this final state, and we can go with this 3, and that is what this is the path should be chosen for the player, min, right? So whoever is at the final step, he will win. Okay, so this is the path. Is it clear to all? I hope it's clear. Yes, anybody?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So this is about alpha beta pruning, minimax algorithm, and pruning preserves completeness, and it's complete. So your pruning doesn't make your algorithm incomplete. Definitely you will get the completeness, and optimality is also achieved. Okay, and good move ordering improves effectiveness of pruning, and time complexity is reduced to half. Okay, so if you are reducing the processing time of half of your thing, obviously you will have the time complexity reduced. Okay. Okay, and next here we have another type of pruning called forward pruning, where some moves at a given node are pruned immediately without further consideration. I hope in data mining or data you would have studied about pre-pruning and post-pruning. Okay, pre-pruning means while constructing the tree itself, if we feel this particular node is not going to be useful, we will not proceed with that. We will cut that particular sequence at that time itself. Okay, and post-pruning is nothing but after completing the entire tree, we will remove the tree such that at least time complexity can be reduced. Okay, so here forward pruning is like that. We prune immediately without further consideration. Okay, most humans playing chess consider only a few moves from each position. Okay, for example, you are playing chess, and if your opponent moves the queen to a particular position, what will you do next? Forward pruning. Okay, so what will you think? Okay, if I move my queen here, obviously he will make a check, so I should not make this move. This is forward pruning. You think in your mind that this step should not be proceeded, and you make the alternate moves. Right, the same thing. But we are seeing how this can be implemented in a computer. Right, and we'll go with the constraint satisfaction problem. I hope this is clear. And can anybody tell what is constraint satisfaction problem? Actually, this is a real life problem, right? So in our real life, in our day-to-day activities, we have many constraints, and we have to be very careful to satisfy all the constraints. Yes, I hope this is very similar. Starting from getting up in the morning, cooking, going to college or preparing school, all those things, we have many constraints, right? Even while attending the session, you might have many constraints, right? So how do you satisfy all the constraints and solve your problems? The same thing here. Okay, so here we are representing the problems mathematically, right? So here mathematical problems are defined as a set of objects whose state must satisfy a number of constraints or limitations, right? Constraint satisfaction should be there. We have n number of constraints for a given problem. Okay, but some of the constraints are mandatory to be satisfied and some can be optional. Okay, but we have to prioritize those constraints and satisfy them. And for solving problem in a particular computer, for example, solving Sudoku is a very perfect example, right? In newspaper and all, we'll have studied. So we have the boxes like this. We have to fill numbers from 1 to 9 in each row and each column, provided no number should be repeated in a particular row and no number should be repeated in particular column, and also it should not be diagonal, and in every this sub box, numbers from 1 to 9 should be filled. These are all the constraints. You should satisfy the constraint in each box, in each column and each row, and the entire problem should be solved, right? So this is to be solved using the system now. The constraint satisfaction is the process of finding a solution to a set of constraints that impose conditions that the variables must satisfy. and we have constraint propagation methods here. Propagation methods means we have the conditions, constraints, but how to induce that constraint into our problem solving, right? So that has to be called as, and we have many methods to introduce or propagate your constraint throughout your problem. Okay, that we'll see. And any CSP can be defined like this. It means CSP stands for constraint satisfaction problem, and it consists of, any problem consists of some variables, right? X1, X2, Xn. You have n number of variables that is normally represented by X. You can use any variables. Here we are representing it as X. Okay, and non-empty domain of possible values for each variable. Okay, for example, you are taking you're working in a hospital. Okay, so hospital means disease. Okay, you have the disease, next age, right? Next you have gender. Likewise, you will have many parameters to be filled, and you are going to identify the values for this. For example, disease means you have cold. Okay, next you have fever. These are the possible values for the variables, right? This is called as D. Okay, D stands for the set of domain possible values, right? This X stands for this disease, age, gender are all X. Okay, and the possible values for each variable is called as domain, right? D1 equal to, for this particular D1 you have the values. Okay, cold, fever, headache, like that. And finite set of constraints, you have constraints. Okay, that can be represented as C1, C2. Likewise, you have n constraints for a given problem, and each constraint limits the values that a variable will take. Okay, normally in maths you would have come across, right? For example, you take f of x equal to, okay, f of x equal to x square. Take a simple example where x value ranges between -5 to +5. Okay, so this is the constraint given for the variable x here. Likewise, for any problem, there will be some constraint which limits the value that the variable can take. Okay, and here they have given a simple example. X1 should not be equal to X2. For example, you have two variables. The values of both variables should not be the same. And you have state. State is defined as an assignment of values to some or variables. Next, consistent assignment means you are assigning some values to variables, and it can be called as consistent assignment if it doesn't violate the given constraints. Okay, for example, Sudoku. When will you say the particular Sudoku problem is solved? Only when all the constraints are satisfied and you have filled up all the columns, right? Okay. Next, when can you say an assignment is complete? An assignment is complete when every variable is assigned some value. Okay, only when all the variables are assigned with its appropriate values without violating the constraints, that assignment can be called as complete. And when it can be called as a solution to a CSP is a complete assignment that satisfies all constraints. Okay, the common examples, you have this CSP in many examples. The common example is map coloring. Next, line drawing interpretation, job shop scheduling, scheduling the Hubble Space Telescope, floor plan. You have many examples, right? So the common examples are map coloring. Okay, so next you have crypt arithmetic puzzle. In any AI book, this will be the common example. Okay, job shop scheduling is another example. Okay, so and the benefits are, it provides clean specification of many problems, generic goal, successor functions, all the constraints, what is the goal, everything is clearly specified. Okay, you have to just represent problem as a CSP and solve with the general package. And CSP knows which variables violate a constraint. Okay, while defining the problem itself, you will give the constraints. Okay, by knowing that this variable should be put on limit, and hence where to focus. Okay, if you have given some constraints to a variable, obviously the algorithm will check the violation of the constraint. Okay, and automatically prune off all branches that violate constraints. Okay, so if we are proceeding in one direction and if that is not going to help you, obviously it will be pruned. State space search could do this only by hand building constraints into the successor functions, right? Okay, we'll go with this map coloring example. This is the traditional example that is given. Okay, for those who don't have a previous idea about this can listen, and I'm giving you some more extra tips in addition to this, and if it can be useful to solve some other problems also, you can use. Okay. Okay, because while grasping all the given contents from your AI book can be little bit clumsy and little bit difficult. So if you listen and you can grasp something, it will be easy for you when you go and see in the next time. Okay. And this is the map coloring problem, right? So where you have some graphs. Okay, so where you have states 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there are 7 states. Okay, these are called as variables. Actually, this is the map of Australia, right? So you can take any map. For example, now in Government of India, Government of Tamil Nadu wants to give some schemes. Okay, and the problem given here is that you have to choose colors. You have 3 colors, red, green and blue. You have to color each state in such a way that no 2 adjacent states will have the same color. Okay, that is the constraint given here. What are the variables? Variables here are nothing but the states. Okay, these are abbreviated here. Western Australia means WA, Northern Territory NT, Queensland Q. Likewise, all the states are abbreviated here and they are used as variables. And what are the domain values? Each state can have 3 values. Either they can be having red, green or blue. Okay, next constraints. There is no constraint, only one constraint, no adjacent regions must have same colors. Okay. Okay, for example, if Western Australia is colored with red, Northern Territory or these 2 states should not have red color. Either it can have green or blue. Okay. Okay, actually this is the solution for this problem. This is not the only solution. For any given problem, you have many solutions, right? This is one of the solution and we'll see how to attain the solution. See here, so if this is colored with red and obviously here you have green and blue. Okay, this doesn't have any conflict. Okay, and if it is green, you can color it with red. Okay, see here at any point you should not have adjacent regions having the same color. And here blue and red, so here you can have green. And here blue and green, so it can be red. And Tasmania is an independent state, so it can be filled with any color. Here they have completed with green color. Okay, so if all the states are filled with some colors and if it is not violating the constraints, then the solutions are said to be complete and consistent. Okay, again I'm telling you, this is not the only solution. In place of red throughout your problem, you can go for green also. Okay, but the constraint should be satisfied. Okay, but in any problem, we have these basic terminologies. Solving this map coloring problem is not a difficult task when we see in our eyes. Okay, but the basic terms that we use in these problems are to be understood clearly. What is a constraint graph? Constraint graph is that this is a map, right? For any problem, we have constraints, not only with map. Okay, for any problem in network, you are taking a problem in computer networking, or you are taking a problem in IoT device or data mining or any type of problem, you have constraints normally and you have some states, right? So that, for example, if you are taking a network, okay, so this is node 1, this is node 2, node 3. And if you have constraint that node 1 should not have, here they have taken as color. Instead, you can take value for your problem. Okay, this node 1 and node 2 should not have the same color, same value. Okay, it should not have the same throughput. It should not have the same, likewise you can have any parameter. Okay, so if that is the parameter, you can represent this. This is called as constraint graph. Okay, so where each node is representing a variable. Okay, so W, A, and T are all variables which are represented as nodes, and we have the constraints represented in this arcs. This on the solid lines, you represent the constraints. What is the constraint here? WA should not be equal to NT. That means the color of WA and NT should not be the same. Similarly, all the conditions can be represented on your arcs. Arcs are constraints. Okay, and the standard representation pattern is variable with its corresponding value. And constraint graph simplifies your searching problem. Okay, and here a problem can be called as unary, binary, or n-ary based on how many variables are related with each constraint. Here you have two variables, right? So every constraint is having only two variables. WA should not be NT. NT should not be equal to Q. Okay, so since it relates only two variables, it is called as binary CSP. Okay, for some problems it may vary. Okay, and types of variables that you use, okay, can be either discrete or continuous. Okay, discrete means, actually what is a discrete variable? Can anybody give an example of discrete variable? I'm talking for a long time. Can anybody say what is a discrete variable? Anybody? Text or answer?
So whole number,
Whole number. Ma'am, example?
like 10, 50, 20, 25, 30.
20, 25, okay. That is the opposite, okay. No, ma'am, some right answer? I'm expecting some other answers.
Ma'am, discrete means some crisp value, exact value, and continuous means like it's not having some estimated value.
Okay, no, ma'am, to be more clear.
It's a finite value. Finite number.
Yes.
It's a finite number.
Yes, sir?
It's a finite number, and
It's
also
a finite number.
and qualitative values which can be represented in the discrete format also. Suppose ratings are there, and we are representing it in the discrete value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, sir. You're right. So discrete variable means, why I am again asking this is the basic terminology that we all faculty should know. Discrete means any variable which has some finite set of value. Okay, for example, gender. Okay, so what are the possible values of gender? Either you can have, sir, can you kindly unmute? Somebody is in unmuted state. Can you mute? Okay, thank you. Okay, so gender can have either the value male or female, or at the third case you have transgender. For any variable, if you have only finite number of possible values, you can define the number. That means you can categorize them. That is called as discrete. For example, number of departments in a college. Okay, so what are the departments? Department can be either ECE or computer science or mechanical or IT. You have only 4 to 5 or even 10. Okay, finite number of values. And continuous variables means, okay, some other examples is given here, but don't confuse here. I'm just giving you the basic example. Okay, so continuous variable means you have infinite set of values. For example, age. Okay, what are the possible values of age? You can have age from 0 to 100. If it is a human being, we close up to 100. Okay, even it can have 200. Or if you take a mummy, it can live for thousands of years, right? Or you take another example, salary. Okay, salary can be from 1 rupee to 20 crores, 30 crores, millions, billions, right? So can you define any number of categories for this particular salary variable? No, right? You cannot categorize them since it has continuous set of values, infinite value. It's not actually infinite set of values, but you have a long range of values which cannot be categorized. Okay, you cannot group them. That is called as continuous variable. Now, I hope everybody got the difference. Discrete variable means you can define some categories or group them. Okay, whereas continuous variables will have long set of values which cannot be grouped. Okay, which has many possible values. Okay, but sometimes continuous values can be converted into discrete values. Discrete values cannot be converted to continuous, but continuous values can be converted into discrete by the process of discretization, as Samsara has already told. Okay, suppose if you have salary, okay, from 1 rupee to, for example, consider what is this, 10,000. Okay, you can group them, right? So 1 to 100 or 1 to 1,000, very low income. Okay, and next 1,001 to 5,000, low income. Next another group. Okay, so next one the medium income. Next one the high income. Next, very high income. Likewise, you can convert this continuous variable into discrete by grouping them. But while discretizing, you should have finite set of groups. Okay, here in any constraint satisfaction problem, you may have either discrete variable or continuous variable. In finite discrete variable itself, some domains will be having finite domains and some will be having infinite domains. Okay, depending on the problem, it will be changed and you have to identify the problem. Okay, and next, constraints. Let me close with some values. Okay, so with some important things. Solving a map coloring problem, I know you can understand by yourself, but I just impose you the basic terminologies that are required here. Unary constraints are nothing but the constraints which involve a single variable. Okay, so here you are saying that this state should not be colored with green color. Only one variable is given. That means you are trying to give constraint for only one variable. Okay, imagine this scenario for any kind of problem, right? Next, binary constraint, it involves pairs of variables. Okay, the color of this SA should not be equal to WA. In higher order constraints, it should involve 3 or more variables. Professor A, B, and C cannot be on a committee together. Okay, I hope you know the basic idea. And preference, red is better than green. So if person A is better than person B, obviously he will be preferred, right? These are called the constraints, preference or soft constraints. And these different types of constraints can be present in any problem, and these all should be satisfied. And when you are solving any problem like map coloring or anything, and you are proceeding in one step, and if you are not able to attain solution, obviously what will you do? You will backtrack to the previous state and try the alternative solution, right? And in order to improve the backtracking efficiency, we cannot go on backtrack all the steps. We have to improve its efficiency. To improve that, we have some heuristics to be followed. Okay, these are the 4 heuristics, just simple only. These are the things that we normally follow in our daily life without knowing this is the terminology used. Okay, so what is the variable to be assigned next? In map coloring problem, okay, if I'm assigning red color to this particular state, what is the color of the next state? Which variable I should choose? For example, I have 3 nodes next to this node. After completing this, which is the next node to be chosen? Okay, so you have to choose most constrained variable, most constraining variable. Most constrained variable means the variable which has more constraints. Okay, this is a typical example to our timetable. Okay, in our college, while we are fixing timetable for faculty, how will you fix? Suppose if a particular faculty has more constraints, he is having that responsibility, this responsibility, and he is having only less time, what will you do? You will first allot hour and subject for this particular faculty and then go on with some other faculty who are free enough to choose the values, right? The same thing. Most constrained variable is chosen first. Next, most constraining variable means the variable which imposes many constraints to others. Okay, that should be chosen next. And which order it should be chosen? Least constraining value. The value should be least constrained. That means it should not pose most constraints to other values. Okay, we'll see these just 4 steps. And to avoid the failure, we can go for forward checking. Okay, just one slide for each thing. So this is the first one, most constrained variable. For example, in this case, you are choosing the variable with fewest legal values. Okay, first we are choosing the color for this state. Okay, what is the next state? Actually, here if you are choosing green here, okay, so the only you can, after choosing green here, you can go for this or this. Okay, but we are trying to fill this with blue. Why? Because it has only one possibility. After this red and green is filled, this node has only one possibility, blue. So let us first fix this so that the values for this particular states can be easily identified. So this least, it has only one possible value. So first fill this. That is minimum remaining value heuristic is followed here. Okay, another possibility. Most constraining variable. Okay, that means tiebreaker. See in this example, so this is initial state. Let us assume we start with filling this with blue. Okay, so after this is filling with blue, Okay, assume next you are filling with green. Okay, so after filling this green, you can go for this or you can go for this, right? So if it is filled, if this is filled with red, obviously this is the first heuristic. Okay, so here choose the variable with the most constraints, which is the next variable or next state with many constraints, this state, because this state has to be consistent with this, this and this, 3 adjacent nodes. So you let us first fix this. Okay, that is how this heuristic is applied. Okay, next is least constraining value. Okay, and given a variable, you have to choose the value. See here, first red is filled, next green is filled. Okay, so after this is filled, either you can fill this. Now suppose if you are trying to fill this, okay, so if you are trying to, you have two possibilities, either red or blue. Which will you fill? You have either red or blue. But if you fill red here, obviously you cannot have any value here, because if you fill, the only possibility is blue. Okay, so this can be filled. Oh, sorry, this can be possible. But if you fill this with blue, obviously the only option here is red. But here is red is also not possible because red is already filled. So this allows 0 values for SA, right? So this should be avoided and this should be chosen. Okay, that particular value should be chosen. Okay, and next, forward checking. Forward checking is nothing but it keeps track of remaining legal values for unassigned variables. Okay, so first, okay, just still see, this is our initial state. Let us assume we start with initial state where we can fill any of the 3 colors to all the states, and assume we fill this WA with red. Okay, WA is filled with red. Next, we leave this and we'll go with this state V. Okay, so let us assume Q, and we fill this with Q. Okay, when we fill this red, obviously you will have the values, remaining possible values for this. SA cannot be filled with red, and NT, these two are neighboring nodes. So this possibility is red is off, has gone. So that is empty. Next, we are filling this with green. Okay, first this is filled. Next, this green is filled. Okay, so after this green is filled, the remaining nodes, the possibility values are gone. Okay, and at the last you have the values filled for blue. Okay, this V. And at every step, you are checking whether remaining values can be comfortably or completely filled for all those remaining nodes. Only if it is possible, you proceed. Otherwise, you have to backtrack. Forward checking has detected, in this case, if SA is filled, okay, again, the colors for this cannot be complete. If you go on like this forward checking helps you to identify that this is inconsistent. The solution cannot be achieved and you have to backtrack. That means you have to change color of any of this previous state, or you have to choose some other nodes. Okay, this is forward checking. And since time is out, just I'll complete this. R consistency is important terminology here. R consistency is nothing but instead of forward checking, you can reduce the time or improve your efficiency. An arc is x to y. This is called as arc. You can represent this arc. X to y is said to be consistent if every value x is taken and there is some consistent y value. For example, the arc is represented like this, right? If SA is said to be, so see this, SA is said to be consistent to NSW if for all the possible values, if you are choosing blue here, and the alternate value should be available for this NSW. Okay, if SA is having blue, obviously this NSW can have red. That means it can have other option. Then it is said to be consistent. Okay, for example, if it doesn't have this red color, and assume here it has only blue, what is the possibility? If SA has already chosen if SA has already chosen blue, then NSW has no option. Then that is said to be inconsistent. So that you can easily identify that this blue should not be present. Okay. See, in this example, assume, as I have already shown, SA is already filled with blue, and in this case, if it is having red, no problem. And see, in this example, the arc is different. The arc is reverse. Okay, if NSW to SA. Okay, the arc is from NSW to SA. If NSW is having red, obviously SA can have blue, no problem. Okay, if NSW is blue, okay, if NSW is red, blue can be filled for SA. But on the reverse, if NSW is filled with blue, then obviously it doesn't have any chance, right? So it has to be checked. That is, the constraint has been violated and we have to remove this blue color from NSW. Okay, this is called as propagating the constraint. And after filling this, if you remove this blue color from this, you have to check with the neighbor nodes. You have to check whether now this NSW is consistent with Q and V. Likewise, the constraints have to be propagated through all the neighboring nodes. This is said to be arc consistency. You have edge consistency, you have different consistencies, but we will not see all those things. Again, another type of consistency here. Okay. See, whenever we are changing some values in one particular node, we have to update the other nodes. We have to check whether all the neighboring nodes are consistent and proceed accordingly. Okay. So, and we have another 4 points problem. I'll just rush up. I think it's time. So let us not close this, or if you want, I can proceed, ma'am. Just I'll go through your glance. You just see.
Yes, ma'am. No problem. You can continue, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll just complete within 5 minutes, ma'am. Okay, this is n queens problem where you have 4x4 box. Okay, 4 queens. See, first you have the chances for all the things. Next, we are placing the first queen on the first box. Obviously, our constraint is that no 2 queens should be on the same row, same column, or it should not be on the diagonal, right? Okay. So next, okay, x1 it is fixed. Okay, so if that is fixed, see here, the choices for other rows and columns are automatically removed. Next, I trying to fill the queen for the second column. Okay, so I cannot have here. So I am choosing with this position. Okay, second queen is placed here. Okay, so obviously the remaining conditions are all checked. Okay, next, it should not have any diagonal. Okay, see here. So if it is violating some constraint, I have to backtrack. Backtracking can be very much applicable in this 4 queens problem. So see here. So if I am placing the Q here, this queen here, obviously it will not have chance for the next queen, because if it is placed here for this particular column, I cannot already have position here. The only possibility is here also I cannot have the same row. Next, diagonal wise also not possible. So what should I do? My move is here wrong. So I should not place the second queen here. So rather I'm choosing the next move. I'm backtracking and going to choose this position. Okay, so if this position is chosen here, obviously the queen can be placed here. Okay, the third queen. But again, all the queens have to be consistent. Okay, see all the possibilities. Okay, next, if it is placed here, where can I place the fourth queen? Fourth queen, the only remaining position is here, right? But it is not possible. So what is the option? So again, I have to backtrack and change the position from the first queen. Okay, so this is how it can be solved. Okay, and we have many more problems. Since the time is very limited, I cannot show you how the crypt arithmetic puzzles are solved, and this is very much important. Crypt arithmetic problems are very commonly used in CSPs. Okay, you can have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all those things in constraint satisfy crypt arithmetic problems. Okay, using these constraints. And that's all. We have some more examples just given here. I'll share the PPT, and if you have any doubt, you can just ask me. Thank you.
Thank you, Devi ma'am, for your wonderful session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants.
And if you have any queries, you can just ask me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any queries?
you catch your points, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Participants, if you are having any query, you can mail us and we will collect the answer from our resource person and we will get back to you.
Sir, and one more thing, if you have any doubt, I have the mail ID given here. In the first slide, you can. So this is my mail ID. I have worked in AI. I'm working in this area for more than 10 years, and I have applied this for many problems. And in future, if you have any doubt regarding this, I have worked with optimization problems also. I have tried to apply optimization algorithms for many real-world problems, medical domain and different agriculture, different types of domains. And if you have any doubt, I'm glad to help you. And this is my contact number. If you want, you can note.
Thank you, Devi ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to share the contents with you all.